you did not do this. It's not because of your sex or your body or your age or a wrinkle or gray hair. He would have cheated no matter who he was married to. She would have cheated no matter who she was married to. You and I have all experienced famous sports figures, political figures, religious figures get headline news. They've cheated, they've lied, they've acted out, they've destroyed their life, they've hurt the ones they loved. And then they go to some fancy treatment center and spend tons of money, and they come out and say, I'm a sex addict, as if everything's supposed to be better because they're a sex addict. Well, is sex addiction real? Or is it just an excuse? What's the answer to that? Well, actually, the answer is yes. There are some people who cheat just because they're bad characters. They might have antisocial personality disorder, they might just be users, liars, and they just disrespect the souls of people, and they just use people like objects. But they don't really have an addiction. They're just using people. So yes, there are some people who use people and then they say, hey, I have an addiction, and it's an excuse. It absolutely is. Now, there's also a large majority of people who have a legitimate sexual addiction. And sexual addiction is real. I'm Dr. Doug Weiss. I'm the president of the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy. I'm also the executive director of Heart to Heart Counseling Center. I've written many books on this subject, been on Oprah, Dr. Phil, all of that. I am one of the world's experts on sexual addiction. But let me say this, sex addiction is not an excuse for bad behavior. If you've cheated or acted out with a prostitute or, done some kind of bad behavior, gotten exposed, gotten arrested, you're still responsible for that choice. And so here's the conversation I have had with thousands of spouses. That addiction is only one of the influencers of a choice. But the person is still 100%, hear me really clear on this, 100% for the choice. And I've helped thousands of men take responsibility for their bad choices. Now, could they have been sexually abused and that's an influence? Yeah, could be. Could it be they had bad role models, a dad or mom who cheat, or both? Maybe they were exposed to pornography at an early age, which by itself could be a form of sexual abuse. Maybe they grew up in a place, I know one person, they grew up in a certain part of the country, and everybody cheated. They just thought that was normal. I know another guy who was taken 14 years old to a prostitute by his dad, and they shared a prostitute. Now that's kind of an odd thing, but it's in a different culture, and they thought everybody cheated. Yeah, that would be an influence, but the person would still be responsible for their behavior. Now, sex addiction's real. Okay, many times what happens is a young man or woman starts with pornography or fantasy, and they masturbate to that thousands and thousands of times, having object relationship sex. So they have a neural pathway attached to object relationship sex. A large percent have been emotionally and physically abused. Some are looking for God in all the wrong places, and so they actually think the unconditional fantasy world fits that hole for them. Some have intimacy anorexia. They have real challenges attaching in real relationships. They're too busy, they blame, they withhold love, praise, sex, spiritually. They oftentimes have criticism towards their spouse. And if you're married to one of these people, you're married alone. And if that's going on, definitely Google intimacy anorexia. Go to intimacyanorexia.com. We've got lots of books on that. And some people actually have a chemical disorder, like depression, manic depression, bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and they chemically have rewarded their brain for sex in a fantasy state. And what happens is they become addicted. Now, an addict would still be 100% responsible for their behavior. So it's not an excuse for bad behavior. It may explain why they made that choice. It might be an influencer in that choice, but a choice is still a choice. So if you're a partner who's been betrayed, you have been through major trauma. I've written a book on that, actually a couple, on partner betrayal trauma. You go to partnerbetrayaltrauma.org. Lots of information there. Your pain's real. Your world's been turned upside down. You did not do this. It's not because of your sex or your body or your age or a wrinkle or gray hair. He would have cheated no matter who he was married to. She would have cheated no matter who she was married to. These are choices.